Welcome back to the Dry Fasting Club. I'm Yannick Wolf, and today we're going to be doing a video review of a Dr. Berg video called Autophagy on Steroids, Dry Fasting. You know, I talked to Dr. Berg actually a few times, 2 or 3 years ago. I consulted him a few times about it. Then I think he went on to doing a few on his own, and now we see this video. So the timelines kind of line up. From just seeing Dr. Berg, I'm assuming his video is going to touch on short dry fasts. I don't know how much he's actually going to talk about it because he has to keep brand safety. He's kind of a mainstream YouTuber, although I'm pretty sure I heard of him getting a little bit of shadow banning during the COVID years. I think he stood up against the COVID vaccine and got punished by the algorithm for it. But still, I don't think Berg went very deep into dry fasting. So we'll see in this video. I'm really hoping there's some cool stuff there. But just remember, this guy is spread across the whole health universe. So I don't really expect him to get a lot of nuance into the dry fasting discussion. But maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised. Let's take a look.
Now, the one thing that we all know is 100% true is that drinking a lot of water is very good for our bodies. And dehydration is very bad for our bodies. We know that. We've been told that by everyone. But why is it that when you overwater a plant, it dies? In fact, the number one cause of plant death, plants in your house, is overwatering them. We also know that to make a really good wine.
Well, we also know, speaking on that analogy, that too much water in the human body also breeds inflammation. The less water in the body, the less inflammation. There's a correlation between those two.
You have to not put too much water. In fact, certain really good winemakers found that if you don't overwater, if the plant or the grapevine goes through a short period of no water, the roots will go deeper and the flavor of the wine is greater. You have a lot more phytochemicals because that plant adapts. And we also know that nutrition is good for our
Are you saying we get tastier too?
bodies, right? You have vitamins and minerals that act as cofactors to help all the biochemistry, the biochemical reactions in our body to make us healthy. But the time restrictive eating, the fasting, also at the same time greatly benefits the biochemistry of your body. And the two main types of fasting is water fasting, okay, and dry fasting. When you do water fasting, you're basically not eating, but you're drinking liquids. When you do dry fasting, not only are you not eating food, but you're not drinking water. So that is a topic I want to touch on and just explain something that's actually quite fascinating. And you may want to consider doing a short dry fast. One of the biggest benefits of fasting is something called autophagy. Autophagy is a condition where your body is recycling damaged proteins, okay? And it's turning those into new biochemical enzymes and structural proteins, things like that, like your hair, nail, skin, bones, muscle, etc.
Yes, he probably took that from one of the articles I discussed specifically about the cross sections of rats or mouse brains when they were being dry fasted, and it showed autophagy skyrocketing in the first 24 to 36 hours of a dry fast, equivalent to the autophagy that you get on day 3 or 4 of a water fast, just showing that the autophagy, at least in the brain, happens so much faster on a dry fast. So if you're dealing with any sort of neuro issues and you're trying to rewire the brain, get rid of some addictions, rewire the dopamine neurotransmitters, things like that, then dry fasting is extremely potent. But remember, that was mainly for the brain. And there are people arguing that the body does not get as much autophagy as the brain because our whole system, our whole body has adapted and evolved to preserve the brain. So the conclusion of that research paper was that we have incredible mechanisms of preservation for the brain. And when the moment the body notices that there's going to be a water loss, a state of dehydration, then it's going to prioritize protecting the brain. And autophagy is a method of protection. It's like Berg just said, when dehydration occurs, there's denaturization and other things that make proteins fall apart. So it's a scary situation. If autophagy is already present and ready, the moment those proteins start being turned off, mutated, broken down, denatured, then it's already in place to start work on it. And if you don't actually go into this crazy dehydration death spiral, then and you get out of that fast, what ends up happening is you get a more powerful refresh on your brain cell, the cellular matter, the tissue, everything gets a bit of a refresh. And we can actually go deeper on that. There's a microtubule restructuring that occurs with dry fasting. I don't think Berg is going to touch on that, but just interesting things to keep in mind.
And fasting is a potent stimulus of this autophagy. Autophagy also helps you clear out intracellular pathogens, microbes, viruses. Very interesting.
Did he say
now,
just dry fasting or fasting?
Clear out intracellular. And fasting is a potent stimulus of this autophagy. Autophagy also helps you clear out intracellular pathogens, microbes, viruses.
Yeah, xenoautophagy.
Very interesting. Now, if we take a look at the importance of getting nutrients versus the importance of detoxification, they're pretty close as far as benefit to your overall health. And in some cases, detoxification might even be a little bit more important. One of the big purposes of sleep is to detoxify your cells. And this is why when you don't sleep, you might feel kind of very toxic and sluggish, especially in your head. Well, when you do fasting, especially dry fasting, you mimic a lot of the benefits to sleep. You're getting rid of toxicity inside your cells. Now, to explain this, I need to explain another thing. About 8 to 10% of the water that you get is produced by your own cells in the mitochondria. As the last step of the mitochondria, if you're burning fat, you're changing that fat into water and oxygen. Roughly about 8 to 10% of the water in your body is produced within your body. It's called endogenous water production, or
he took that from some of my articles too, where I specifically have the calculations of how air and water comes together, which I also took off of a Russian scientist. So just passing it around, passing the knowledge around. I just wanted to jump in on the autophagy because I think he's jumped into this. I don't know if he's going to come back to autophagy, but he mentions sleep is why it's so important to do the house cleaning. I think I made an analogy in one of my videos where it's like the shopkeeper that sweeps the shop. And if you don't go to sleep, nobody sweeps in between shifts. So it just gets dirtier and dirtier in the store. So that's kind of how I look at it. But here's the problem that a lot of people in the keto space and the fasting space actually make. If you're this will let you stand out a little bit with some good information. Autophagy actually occurs regardless of if you're fasting or not. Yes, you can get slightly higher autophagy levels, but even with water fasting, it takes a few days to reach there. But there's a correlation to metabolism. A very high functioning metabolism means that you have higher autophagy levels, waking, sleeping, whatever. In general, your body is performing at a higher level, and autophagy occurs day to day. It's really when your body starts falling apart from chronic illness, which I believe is all based in insulin resistance. That's the root cause of all these problems. That's when you start getting impaired autophagy, and sleep becomes even more important to heal because you almost force these mini reboots when you go to sleep on an empty stomach. But to think that it's just autophagy from sleep, that's not true. Yes, it's nice to have your blood sugar levels go down just because it allows the growth hormone to play its role. And I actually believe the growth hormone has more of a role than autophagy during sleep. Okay, let's continue.
Metabolic water. I mean, even in nature, animals, especially those that live in the desert, have a higher function of this. They can make water from within. And one of the big benefits of your body making this water is you get this internal water flushing from the inside out. So you enhance the detoxification process. But if you're drinking all this water, the body never gets a chance to produce this metabolic water. This is why when you do a water fast, okay, you don't get the benefits from a dry fast because you're actually drinking water. And that water inhibits the production of your own body's water. So a dry fast really is enhanced autophagy. It's just a better way of your cells taking out the trash and getting rid of all the extra metabolic waste. And the benefits are very similar to sleeping as far as the detoxification of your cells. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much extra waste that we generate in our cells through the day, especially if we're not eating well. So anything you can do to remove extra waste is a very good thing, especially for longevity. So let me...
Okay, quickly. Yes, so the structured water, but when people make this claim that your water is going to be so much better in your body because you're creating so much structured water, yes, you're creating a small amount of structured water. Actually, you actually dehydrate faster than you create water. There's this weird myth. People think that you can go 20, 30 days, no problem, because you're producing so much water. Some people think that it outpaces your actual dehydration, but no, the longer you go, the more you get dehydrated. It is a small amount, so it does help balance. You don't just dehydrate that quickly because you're producing some. But I don't agree with the idea that you're doing a full water flush of the body with structured water. And that type of water also comes in the form, let's say you're drinking straight from a plant, like straight coconut water, or you're juicing celery and straining it out so you have no fiber, just the juice. Those are really good sources of water with vitamins.
Just kind of summarize the benefits in a little bit more detail for you. Number one, dry fasting can help remove intracellular toxicity more than water fasting. Number two, dry fasting actually strengthens the biochemical enzyme pathways, the whole biochemistry, the machine that runs your body. Number three, and this is very, very important.
What does that even mean? What is he specifically? He just made a statement. He didn't really say what the mechanism was. And for number one, the remove intracellular toxin, it is better just because of the osmotic gradient of dry fasting. Think of it when your blood is losing volume and water, it creates an osmotic gradient that pulls water out of the cell almost forcefully. And with that, it does remove intracellular toxins much, much better.
Most diseases are related to the mitochondria, mitochondrial dysfunction. And doing dry fasting can help improve mitochondrial function because when you go through autophagy, you also clean up damaged mitochondria, and that's called mitophagy, which is the recycling of mitochondria, as well as improving damaged mitochondria themselves. Because I would even venture to say that probably 80% of all disease, including cancer, is related to a problem with the mitochondria. If you add exercise with dry fasting during that period of time, which I'll explain the details in a minute.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the blind idea that since water fasting has proven benefits for cancer and chemotherapy, that dry fasting must be even better for cancer. It's actually not. And somebody suffering with really late stage cancer should not dry fast without completely understanding the situation and taking the necessary precautions. Too many people over the years I've talked to where the cancer actually gets worse after extended dry fasting. So that is the one thing where you can't just blindly make these claims, especially around cancer. I have some strategies around it. There's things like ivermectin, fenbendazole combos, but you really want to focus on that insulin resistance link, which is super important to the mitochondria. I think Berg and a lot of people are messing it up thinking it's a mitochondrial disease, but even before it becomes a mitochondrial disease, the reason is the cells in the mitochondria are unable to use glucose properly. And this becomes a whole debate between keto and what keto does and why it's a good Band-Aid solution, but why it doesn't help your mitochondria use glucose correctly in the long run. So complicated world, but that's how it is.
You can really take your mitochondria to the next level because exercise as a stimulus by itself can increase the number of mitochondria and the health of the mitochondria, as well as the capacity for the mitochondria to handle more stress and also produce more energy. All right, number 4. We have different epigenetic factors, okay? Epigenetics.
By the way, there's no proof that dry fasting actually produces more mitophagy or better mitochondria. This is an assumption. The same way we assume that just because it's stronger, it must give stronger effects. Because it's good for cancer, dry fasting must be better than fasting, but that's not always the case. But I would tend to agree with that statement.
Are above your genes. The genes really do not control anything, okay? It's the epigenetic lifestyle actions like eating and even not eating. Short-term starvation or fasting is a very potent stimulus for survival. And so is cold therapy, because our bodies have evolved, not in very comfortable environments, but environments that were very, very cold and environments that we didn't always have a lot of water. And so if we inhibit the production of water at certain parts of the day, it just may be very therapeutic to the cells, just because we're going back to how our bodies were originally adapted. They did not evolve with constant food, constant comfort, a lot of water all day long. Number 5.
Okay, perfect. Let me pause it on number 4. So I just want to jump in very quickly. I know I'm just stopping at it all the time, but this is another little bit of a problem in the health biohacking sphere, and how popular cold plunges, extreme sauna use, fasting are becoming. All of these hormetic stressors. They're the flavor. Everybody thinks that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And the same thing with intermittent fasting, having a black coffee in the morning every day, just like rocking it in this stressed out state. There's a whole other world that I'm subscribed to, and it's the repeat sphere, which claims that we are putting way too much goodwill on hormetic stressors. And the body actually thrives when you feed it abundance and you just avoid as much stressors as possible. I'm sort of in the middle. I don't lean into that idea where you should never do heavy exercise, you should never do stuff. I don't think that's how you should live your life. I believe in hormetic stressors. Obviously, I dry fast. I've dry fasted for so long, and of course I'm going to believe hormetic stressors are good, but I also realize how everyone in this space is overdoing it on the hormetic stressors. And I think it's way, way too much. I deal with people with chronic fatigue, ME, all of these weird chronic illnesses. Think Lyme disease, ME/CFS, long COVID. And a lot of these also have a component, a neural and spinal and nervous system component. And the constant hormetic stressors are making it worse. And for some people, it's because their body has been in this hormetic stress for way too long. Think 10 years of intermittent fasting, skipping breakfast, only having black coffees, constantly lowering the ability of your mitochondria to use glucose because you've been completely skipping so many meals. And for a lot of them, they're also low carb for that long, which adds another stress on top of it. Then they're going in the saunas and the cold plunges, adding more stress on top of it. And your body breaks down. Then you get hit with an infection, RSV, long COVID, a tick bites you, something happens, and your whole world comes crashing and you can never get back out of it. And you realize it came because your body was in a survival state for way too long. All right, let's continue.
Dry fasting can mimic some of the benefits of a deep, rejuvenating sleep. I mean, sometimes I'm wondering if someone's really tired because they're tired, or are they tired because the accumulation of metabolic waste that has accumulated through the day, or from some of the things that they ate. I personally know when I fast, I don't get tired as much as when I'm eating, and I feel better, and I don't need as much sleep. And
classic sign of a bad glucose metabolism and the beginning of insulin resistance. Even if your blood tests are showing you great A1C levels, great fasting glucose, but yet you can't eat carbs. And when you do eat carbs, if you went and tested yourself, you'd see your fasting glucose was probably terrible. And just in general, if you can't handle carbs, what happened to your body? Something is wrong.
even the real deeper purpose of sleep is detoxification of metabolic waste. And the last point I want to bring up is just there's not a lot of people who do any type of dry fast. And it's one thing that we're told you must always drink so much water to be hydrated. But dehydration as an epigenetic stimulus is something that I think you should just test out for yourself. Yes, there are people that do 3-day dry fast or even longer. I'm not suggesting you dive into that. What I am suggesting you test the waters on, no pun intended, is let's say, for example, you're fast.
I just want to pause it quickly because of the water concept. I agree with him wholeheartedly, but the problem is, I'm not sure what exactly he's saying there. He's like, oh, maybe we're just drink too much water in general. I've also seen these people in the dry fasting space get obsessed with dry fasting and start to live a life where they just stop drinking water. There was this famous case of this fruitarian who would only get his water from fruits. Maybe he was a vegan. He'd eat nuts, fruits, whatever. It's not my place to judge. I don't really think a vegan diet is actually healthy in the long run. It's pretty obvious it's not, but it is an interesting diet and is a very thyroid positive diet that can help a lot with insulin resistance. But you just have to know when to jump off that train before it wrecks you, before it derails completely and you trash your body. But these guys would get water only from fruits, for example, structured water, but dry fasting is good. We definitely have, their logic is that we drink too much water. And what ends up happening, some of these people after many years die. And on autopsy, you look at their kidneys and they have scarring everywhere. Water is very important to humans, more important than food. Yes, there's hormetic stressors and so much benefit to doing a dry fast. Very rarely, if I have to put a number on this, a perfectly healthy person should probably do 1 or 2 5-day dry fasts max per year. When you're super chronically ill, where like you've tried everything, you've gone to every doctor, you've spent $100K on treatments, nothing's working, you're ready to call it quits. That's when you need to look into the extra long dry fasts. But yeah, until then, you drink your water, which is also correlated to your metabolism. A faster, healthier metabolism requires more water during the day. A carnivore diet requires more water because you've lost your electrolytes, so your body can't even hold on to it properly. Lots of, both sides of the spectrum, different problems. Just don't go too crazy into this notion that you never have to drink water.
Fasting for 16 hours, okay, or 18 hours. Just try not to drink any water in that period of time. Then when you eat, okay, your eating window, that's when you start getting your liquids. And I do suggest you drink a lot of water, right? Like maybe 2.5 liters to get all your fluids within your eating window. Okay, now I'm not saying to force yourself to drink, but the point is that, for example, if you have a weakness with kidney stones, well, you're going to have to get more fluid in your body. But you should just see how you feel. If you can go 16 or 18 hours or even 20 hours without drinking any water while you're fasting. What about the coffee in the morning? Well, you could actually take a green coffee extract. Okay, it has caffeine in it. So you get the benefits of the caffeine, so you don't have withdrawals from
your coffee. Is he talking about the powder?
Yet you're not drinking the fluid of that coffee. So you get the feeling of coffee, but without
it's like matcha.
Fluid.
So you're saying
it's just an
matcha.
extra thing to look at if you want to enhance the epigenetic factors.
That's actually funny that he mentioned that. I wonder if he took it off one of my videos where I said coffee and dry fasting. I explored that topic, which is funny. I don't recommend it, especially if you're doing therapeutic longer fasts. No, if you're doing shorter ones, everybody cheats here and there, through experimentation. I'm not going to lie to you. I've had tiny amounts of cappuccinos to get me going in the morning, and I still counted it as a modified dry fast. A little bit of cheat. But in general, if you have a very sensitive nervous system, I would not recommend it. And if you're going for long fasts, you will really mess it up if you try to do these little caffeine cheats in the beginning. You really want to avoid everything to be able to complete really long dry fasts correctly.
You may want to consider or look into doing a dry fast, a shorter one to start out, and then experiment a little bit longer. Now, if you're new to fasting by itself and you need to know how to do that, you should probably start out with this video.
Okay, I think we're done. He also mentioned kidney stones. That's another thing you want to keep in mind. If you have any sort of kidney issues or have had a kidney stone in the past, this becomes a bit of a liability when it comes to dry fasting. And if you're worried, just in general, a very good just blank recommendation is that you do some form of kidney cleansing a week before your dry fast, maybe even longer. And by that, I mean drinking lemon water, apple cider vinegar, and other strategies around kidney stone busting. In general, people who have kidney issues and liver issues can actually improve them drastically with dry fasting, but you still want to take certain precautions. Take a precaution for kidney stones. And that's also why before you do long dry fasts, a liver flush is super important. Berg didn't mention it because his claim is that he doesn't recommend to go for the long ones. And that's a safe stance to take, but it doesn't protect people who are going to try and go for longer ones. But overall, that was great. I think that was a good intro. He definitely opened a lot of people's eyes to dry fasting. And yeah, kudos to Dr. Berg. See ya. They want you sick. They want you dependent. They want you in debt. The first act of rebellion is to get your health back. I came back from the dead. I commune with the dying and sickly daily. The world is not what it seems. You can liberate yourself. Subscribe if you want access to a private Discord server to support the site, to get a discount link for medications like growth hormone and slow-release T3, and access to the Miro board with huge brainstorm charts. Your health is just around the corner.